So, Mr. John D. Reyes, my colleague, friend, someone that I absolutely look up to consistently. Always appreciate you having the time to join us here. John, what I find interesting is this. Um, Over the last 18 months, we've seen a significant decline in transactional volume. And for most agents, they feel that decline in transactions happening around them and specifically in their business. And yet, you and I had a conversation recently where you shared with me this is like a record breaking year for your business. So, you're doing something very different and you're doing something very right. So, I would love to kind of dive into what is working for you in this market. What is leading to this tremendous year that you're having in the real estate side? Because I think there's a lot of nuggets there that people could implement and start to make some really great adjustments coming into the second half of this year.
The first thing I would say, Joe, is that if we look at the overall landscape of business, yes, it's pulled back due to the fact that we have rising interest rates. People have less expendable income, and people, despite what we're reading in the media, just talk to your family and friends. People are hurting financially. They're not out there just frivolously spending like they were years ago.
Hmm.
So now, with that said, it's a tightening in the market. And if you were to own a home with $300,000 in equity, you're not going to feel overly confident to put that property on the market and then pay double the interest rate just simply because you want to buy a new home. People are feeling these pain points. So I would say, number one, that it's very important that every agent, every lender, every affiliate really understand the landscape of what are we truly dealing with. Let's not keep our head in the sand and hear what we want to hear. So many people politically, they choose their parties and it's like a sports team. So
Yeah.
no matter what, if their person is in office, everything's great. And
In
it's
their
really like
mind.
that does in their mind,
Yeah.
right? Or they tell themselves that.
Yeah.
It's like, Joe, who's your favorite baseball team or basketball team?
I'm actually a football guy. So, Dallas Cowboys.
Okay, so you watch the Dallas Cowboys play,
Yep.
and that's actually Daniel, my cousin's husband. That's his favorite team, right? So if the Dallas Cowboys were to play the Raiders,
Hmm.
even if the Cowboys lost, you're going to sit there and you're going to back your team. You're going to back your squad. You're going to talk about all the reasons why they should have won and why the Raiders are still horrible, despite the fact that they scored more points.
Yeah.
We need to look at things as objectively as possible and put ourselves in the position of our consumers first and foremost. So let's not play the sides. Let's just understand where our clients at.
Hmm.
Because the moment that you understand where our clients at, then you're in a position to not only empathize, but at the same time sell more efficiently to your client. Like, I get it. I understand what your concern is. And then it puts you in a power position to have an educated conversation with your client to say, yes, look, you have equity in your home. You're probably going to be spending more money than what you want on your replacement home due to the fact that the market is hot. But at the same time, your home is also hot as well. So there's going to be a counterbalance there. That's a good thing. And we also know that interest rates are higher. Yes, it's not the most favorable thing, but the moment that interest rates fall, you're probably going to have a lot more competition.
Yeah.
And then that's when the clients sit back and be like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. You know what? I talked to somebody else, another real estate agent, and I just I didn't feel comfortable in even engaging any further, just simply because rates are high. So I would say step number one is that we really just have to understand the landscape and the pain points that our clients are feeling. I try to do that as best as I can, just by staying up to date with where are we at in the economic world as best as possible. And I have a process on doing that. A lot of real estate agents will ask me, what is my method of doing this? I'm an avid reader. Each and every morning I read every morning, so it's like methodical. I make my coffee, and while I'm making my coffee, I'm already prepping the different websites that I'm pulling up, and then from there I'm going online, and then while I'm having my coffee, I'm just doing a quick read. MBS Highway is a fantastic resource. It's for mortgage lenders, so I would say to you real estate agents, connect with a lender who has access to MBS Highway. This is Barry Habib, best economist that I think is out there in the industry. He's won multiple awards, including the Crystal Ball Award. He's won it from Zillow multiple times, which means out of every economist out there, from what he has said, hey, this is going to happen. It's on record, and then it actually happens. So Barry is a great resource for all of us because he breaks it down in layman's terms, but he also gives the metrics. And it's important to speak numbers. Don't just speak hypotheticals to your clients. So to summarize, be educated. You have to know what you're selling.
And John, so MBS Highway is definitely a strong recommendation. Give us maybe two more that you think that agents should be looking at on a consistent basis, if not daily.
Okay, so Market Watch is another.
Mm-hmm.
That is a great resource. I love that one. And then also what I'll do is I'll just pull up Google News and then I'll look in the finance sector. I will look in the business sector. And then I will also look at other things like commodities. For example, I follow where silver and gold is trading because that's an indicator as to where people are feeling confident putting their money. And then I'm also looking at things like the crypto market. That is a market that not a lot of people understand, but it is something that a lot of people are still paying attention to.
Yep.
So it's kind of a culmination of these things to say, well, if other sectors are bringing in a large amount of money, where's that money coming from?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's maybe being pulled from the stock market because of lack of confidence in the market, therefore they're putting it in others. Or maybe it's just the real estate market itself, people not feeling as comfortable, as confident, not putting their money into commercial properties. Now they're looking at some other things as well. So those are the various resources that I'm reading. And I used to spend more time doing it on a daily basis for years, but now it's really a 10-minute investment. And it's really what it is, but I feel like it gives me a good enough foundation to then get the day going. So number one, make sure that you're educated. And then now, Joe, let me just add to that.
Yeah.
Know your market as well.
Mm-hmm.
We have resources like ChatGPT, AI technology. I just logged in yesterday to ChatGPT and I'm going through the process because I fly out to Florida on Sunday. And I just wanted to see, I'm selling a home in North Fontana. What can you tell me about the city? And ChatGPT started giving me data and stats, including housing information.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wow, imagine if I just took this and threw this into a slide deck, how much more confident I am in just my listing presentation itself.
Yeah. Yeah, it's powerful stuff. So John, I mean, let's go one more layer below in like the funnel, if you will. So understanding the market at play and how that impacts the consumer is where to start. Because if you don't know what the consumer's experiencing, you don't know how to speak to them, you don't even know where those opportunities are. And when I say opportunities, I don't want to sound opportunistic. I mean opportunities to actually serve and help somebody because they're the ones in need, raising their hand saying, I need to transact. Let's take it one level down now. So you understand the marketplace as it is in this moment. With that in mind, where are you allocating your marketing efforts and where are you finding opportunities today?
I make it very simple. I don't want a difficult life. I want a very simple and easy life. And even though my numbers are are really good right now, I will tell you that my input, the amount of time and effort that I'm putting into my business, I know is significantly less than most agents. So I focus heavily on the efficiency factor.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not out here sitting there trying to burn both ends of the candle. I did that for so long. It's unsustainable. I don't care what anybody says, unless you're Marty Rodriguez. Now, if you're Marty Rodriguez, that's a whole new story.
Yeah.
I asked Marty, where do you get your energy to just push the way that you do? That's just not normal. And that's why she's so amazing, by the way. But with that said, I don't meet too many of the people that could just sit there and grind and, like I said, burn both ends of the candle, be the first one in, last one out. I did that for 18 years to the point where then I was like, okay, I'm 36 years old now. I got to do something different because I'm already approaching my 40s and I need to live life a little. So what I do is that I make sure that I have a really great product that I'm selling. Look at the product that you're selling right now as a real estate agent and rank it. Where does it stand in comparison to your competition? If you were somebody who did not know you, would you feel comfortable and confident in picking up the phone and talking to you simply by the way that you answer your phone? How do you answer your phone? Do you sit there and answer your phone and say hello and not instill a sense of confidence for the person that's calling you in the first place? Because no professional business would answer like that. I answer the phone and I say, "This is John speaking." And I say it with a sense of enthusiasm, like right from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's a door opener for somebody to say, "Hey, John, I'm calling about your property and da 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 da." So, okay. So if you understand and make sure that you have a great product to sell, it makes your job a lot easier. Now, Joe, I'm sure knowing you well enough, you're going to want to push and say, well, what makes a great product? So I'm going to assume that's what you want to say, but let me verify that that's what you would want to ask next.
Yep. And I would also like for you to just, I already know the answer to this, but I want to make sure other agents do as well. What is the
Mhm.
product?
Yeah.
Okay, so the product is service. That's what I sell to my clients.
Yep.
Service.
Yep.
We're in a
Perfect.
service-based business.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm always intrigued how sometimes agents think, oh, I get it. You sell in, Southern California, Ranch Cucamonga. You have better products than I do. That's not what you're speaking of. You're speaking of you as the product, you as your services, as the agent, as your ability to perform. That's the product. And then
Mhm.
please, you're spot on. What does make a great product, John?
Well, that's why people want to work with us, and that's why they hire us, and that's why they feel comfortable and confident in compensating us for what we ask, is because of the product that we offer, which is our service. So I'll just break it down in a couple of ways. If I'm helping a buyer, I'm taking the responsibility of making sure that I can clearly articulate to a buyer the steps that are involved from beginning to end, start to finish. Because then I educate them, and when I educate them, I empower them. When I empower them, that instills a sense of confidence and trust. When I'm
Definitely.
speaking to my clients in a very clear and concise manner, and I'm using professionally marketable resources such as, let me shoot you a link and share with you my screen. And I just have the steps that they're following so that way they can understand and really internalize what's involved in buying a home. What's happening is, whether or not they're knowing it, is that their trust factor for me is going through the roof.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I'm talking to a seller, market knowledge, that's important for buyers as well. But market knowledge for sellers is very important. But I'm not just selling the fact that I know the market. I'm not just selling the fact that I could pull up some data and stats, because we could all contact our title rep and get them, or we could use InfoSparks with the MLS. There's so many different ways of grabbing the info. But now I need to be able to deliver to my client to say, here's what I know, here's why that's important to you.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it comes to selling their home, I need to be able to market and promote their home in a much more efficient manner. Because imagine, Joe, I'm promoting their home on the internet, and I'm competing against all of the other homes that are within a similar price range, and not just in that city, because we know that buyers are open to, well, I'd be open to living in North Montana. I'd be open to Rancho. I'd be open to Ontario. Sometimes people are open to not just a specific community. So I have even greater competition.
Yep.
So now I have great photos. I have a really well written property description. I have a video tour where I'm walking a prospect through the details of what makes that home so special, what makes it so unique. And on top of that, I'm selling the city, the locality of the city, the placement of the home in comparison to the whatever, right? Las Vegas, the beaches, the mountains, the school districts, world-class shopping. What it does is that, again, it elevates my brand, makes my clients feel so much more comfortable and confident in working with me. And I understand the plight of buyers and sellers. So I assume the responsibility of making sure that I'm walking them through the steps. But then I also ask you, Joe, let me ask you, what keeps you and Sarah up at night? I'm sure, as a first time seller, I'm sure there are some things that you guys talk about to say, we're excited to sell our home, but we're worried about. What are some of those pain points? What are some of those things that you're thinking about? And so I just think that that goes by way of great communication, because now if I ask you this, I throw the ball back in your court.
Mm-hmm.
And this is exactly what happened on my listing in Fontana, the listing in Fontana that I just sold. First time seller. And as soon as I asked that, the wife had said, I work from home, and I'm concerned about people just showing up and seeing the house. And of course, I need to make sure that it's ready.
Right.
But I have a very demanding job. Like, how do we balance that?
Yes.
Well, I'm happy that you asked, because now, because I'm anticipating what their pain points are, I already had this point addressed in my presentation to talk about my showing process.
Mm-hmm.
And in my showing process, imagine, I was already like, I don't know what the word is, telepathic. I already thought about what they were going to say. In my slide deck, I had pointed out the process in which we employ keeps them from being annoyed, keeps them from being bothered during the middle of the week. And here's why.
Yep.
So as soon as I was able to address that, for her, I saw the weight just be released from her shoulders. And they were like, oh yeah, all right. Sounds great. When are you guys ready? They're like, now, let's get this going now. And the beautiful thing about that is we were able to represent both the buyer and the seller. So we had an opportunity to double in the transaction.
Nice.
Great business for me. My clients are super stoked. My buyer's happier than heck. But it goes back to the product that I sold to the client and me not wanting to having to work harder. Do we think it's easier to generate new leads with the current inventory we have now? Or do you think it's easier to just going out into door knock and to knock on people's doors who don't even know you?
Yeah, obviously the business you have is going to lead to more business, or at least it's supposed to, right? This is why every listing should turn into at least 2 to 3 more pieces of business and a buyer. And you are masterful in that way. And we're going to go a layer deeper in that regard in a moment. But before we do, I want everyone to really think about what you just said there, John, because I'm imagining that these solutions just didn't come out of the sky. This is from your experiences in selling real estate. You've seen what other sellers have gone through or what their struggles were when selling their home. And instead of just chalking that up to a specific situation, you made it a point to really catalog all of these different issues that a seller could face and how to have solutions for them moving forward. So
Yeah.
I'm sure that telepathy kicked in when you're working with someone and could kind of anticipate what their issues could be. But even if you didn't, you would still be able to deploy a solution for something out in left field. There again, that's a superior product.
John, speaking of the product, like how would an agent know that they need to make improvements to their product? Like, are there any indicators that they're maybe experiencing that they're like, oh man, I need to fix something. I need to improve something with my product?
Off the cuff, I would say if your sphere of influence, your family and friends are not using you, there's a problem right off
Mm,
the bat. And
mm,
it's not a them problem. It's not a, oh, they're not supporting me. This is not a charity business. Nobody should ever support you because you're a family member or friend. It's your job to earn that business. It's not their job to remember you. It is your job to be remembered.
Mm.
And so I would say that that right there, check that off the box, guys. And if that's you as an agent, don't put your head down and walk away from this business thinking that it's just not for you. You just need to make some tweaks to your business. But you also have to keep in mind as well, it's your responsibility to make sure that you're scrutinizing your product on your own. But at the same time, I empathize with so many agents because how do you know? You don't know if you don't know. And I don't see too many people that are sitting there being brutally honest with you as agents. And also, I would say that that is one thing that I had very early in my life. My father taught me that from day one. When I played sports, if I didn't do well, my dad never sat there and patted me on the back and said, "Well, hey, you tried." No, he was like, "You did horrible. You did horrible. Here's why. We need to fix this." And if you want to do well and you want to fix it, then here's an opportunity for you to do that. Let me hire you a coach, but go on out and do it. And if I don't want to sit there and practice and take whatever 10 reps, I was a goalkeeper. If I didn't want to sit there and to run these drills with the goalkeeper, well, then I wasn't going to get any better. Well, that's nobody's fault other than my own. It's not the game, it's fault. It's my fault, right? So I thank the Lord that my dad gave me that basis and foundation. In fact, he was just at my house. We just watched the devastating defeat of Germany in the Euro 2024 game. They just played Spain, and we're all here together just watching it. And my father's my best friend to this day. But the thing that I would tell you is that I know that I feel like I have a hack in life because of the things that he taught me.
Mm.
But if you don't have that for yourself, then if your family friends aren't using you, check that off the list. If I was to ask you as agents on a scale of 1 through 10, 10 being you can stand with Joe, you could sit on Joe's call and do a listing presentation and impress pretty much everybody who's going to listen to you. 10 out of 10, would you feel comfortable and confident enough for that? Or 1, you might as well not even go because it's going to be a waste of your gas because you know dang well you're not going to get hired. Where do you stand? I'll give you the most common answer. The most common answer from real estate agents nationwide that I've personally surveyed, and I've trained thousands of real estate agents, thousands, tens of thousands.
Coast to
The number
coast
one
as
answer
well.
is 7 out of, yep, coast to coast, 7 out of 10.
Mm.
7 out of 10 is what I get the majority almost anywhere in the United States. I could be in a small town with a Starbucks 28 minutes away, just to kind of give you an idea of how small the town is. And when I say, where do you rank? 7 out of 10 has been the consistent answer for years, which to Cameron's point, if you have children, Joe, I know you have kids. If your son, Max, brought home a 70% spelling test, like you got a test and you got a 70%, would you be happy with that?
Oh, we're gonna have a talking to. That's for sure.
And then if I ask you, what is the grade on that? What is the grade for 70%?
That's hardly a C. That barely made it to a
It's
C.
a C minus.
Yep.
So now if we're showing up with a C minus game, what do we expect? Right.
Yeah.
So my advisement would be is to reach out to somebody like Joe. Joe, I don't know if I'm putting you on the spot with this, but I'll just say reach out to somebody like Joe, reach out to a leader in your office, reach out to a fellow real estate agent who is maybe in your market just doing really well and crushing it and killing it. And then ask them, their time is valuable. Ask them in some way, shape, or form if they could take a look at what you're bringing to the table. I think that's a great indicator, and tell them, be brutally honest with me, because if you just tell me what I want to hear, it's not going to do me any good. And I know that Joe, you're well aware, Cameron, I'm sure you know this as well. I'm out constantly meeting real estate agents, and I know that my motto in life is I'm smart enough to know that I'm dumb. So when I see an agent who's just crushing it and killing it, somebody who I would feel a sense of like, oh, I hope I get this listing because I'm exactly, but like legit competition. Somebody who I respect, somebody who I'm not going to be mad if I don't get the listing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to lose a listing ever, but there are some agents that I'm just like, tip my hat to them. You know what? You beat me on this one. My goal is to take you out on the next, but I respect them so much that many of these agents I've been able to break bread with, get together to be like, I need to learn from you. If there's anything I could share with you, great, but I know that I have a lot that I can learn from you as well. And that has helped me tremendously. I mean, some amazing agents that the chances of us competing against each other is so minuscule. I mean, it doesn't really even happen, but it's just iron sharpens iron. We want to make each other better.
Yeah, and it's interesting, John. So a couple of things that we're doing now, like offerings to the agent community, for example, is one on my Monday Mastermind. 1 week of the month is going to be a live role play where we have someone who's 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 or an 11 out of 10 saying, I am happy to show up and deliver in front of other agents who know what's right, wrong, and if I did it well, I want to deliver in front of them. And it's a live role play that people can jump on and watch, which is always key, because if you walk away super impressed, then I hope that you have found some of the specific ways in which you could take from what they're doing and implement it in your business. And number two, it's always that understanding of there's more for me to get better at. So that's one offering that we're doing with my Monday Masterminds. The second one is a live role play with one-off agents. So jumping on with me and maybe Cameron and literally having them present to us so that I can start to critique. Because what I find is either there is some significant overhaul, but in a lot of ways, people are missing out in very specific, minute areas that they just don't see. And that's the beauty of having a coach, right? It's because you can't see those blind spots, which really is a good segue into the next area I want to get into, because I've watched you perform, John, in various different ways. I've been on a Vegas casino with you, saw you take an inbound phone call, walk away, and set a listing appointment, and then later close that listing, like signed the listing, got it on the market, sold it. So I've watched you do that in real time. I've had the absolute pleasure of learning from you at open houses where you can convert far superior to anyone else I've ever seen in real time. So I guess my question to you is this: when agents do have these opportunities, they're in front of someone having a real estate conversation, where are you finding that you excel in converting those opportunities where others do not? Like, what are those situations, and what are you doing to actually convert where other people miss the mark altogether?
So the first thing I would say is this, is that I focus heavily on conversions.
Mm-hmm.
I understand the importance of having a dialogue, establishing communication with the prospect, but doing it in a very precise way where I'm getting answers to information that I need in order for me to assess where this client is at, because I don't want to just sit there and shoot the, you know what, with somebody who walks into my open house and then somebody else walk in, a really hot buyer. I'm just sitting there talking about the football game, not getting any further along because they didn't show up to make a friend, right? That person didn't show up to make a friend. And so I want to be that immediate standout where they're like, there's something different about this guy, the way that he talks. I hear that all the time from prospects, all the time. And the deal that you're talking about when we were in Vegas, I remember that it was early in the morning. I had just ordered a drink, an Estrella beer. As I was grabbing that cold frosty glass, that's when my call came in. And when I talked to this prospect, she told me, she literally said, I made an Excel spreadsheet of real estate agents who have closed deals in this area within the last 24 calendar months. I went online, I checked you guys out, and you have one of the most impressive profiles, but I'm still doing my homework. And my goal was to get, when I answered that call, was to engage in dialogue, ask questions, build and establish an element of rapport with her. And then I also needed to be memorable. She said, I'm still doing my homework. I needed to establish a hook. So I think, Joe, what it comes down to is this. You have to know how to sell. You have to know how to communicate with a prospect. Most real estate agents struggle with this tremendously. Mm-hmm. Most real estate agents have not really taken the time to understand the craft and the art of sales with our prospects. And I know, Cameron, you and I go back a decade, and that's something that we've worked on together 10 years ago. And it just rings true to this day. So if I meet a prospect, somebody walks into an open house, I have a certain pattern, a way of just introducing myself to them, because I want them to feel comfortable right from the start. That's actually part of my sales process. It's just like me answering the phone. They walk on in, I'm meeting them at the door, or I'm engaging with them the moment that they walk. I don't want them to feel like they're walking into a library. You ever walk into an open house when you're showing a property, you're taking your client and the realtor's there and it's real quiet and you feel like you need to whisper to your client? Like that just doesn't sit well with me at all. So I get out of my way. Thank you so much for coming on into my open house. Welcome. Come on in. First question I ask is, so how did you find today's open house? Oh, I found it on the internet. Great. Which website? I found it on Redfin. All right, perfect. At least I know where my marketing dollars are working. So I'm thinking about these things. Redfin, perfect. Zillow, those are two big ones. I saw an ad on social media. You did. Facebook or Instagram? Facebook. Perfect. So at least I'm making a mental note because I'm putting money into this, right? Mm-hmm. And then I have a little bit of a dialogue with them. Well, welcome. My name is John Reyes, and I would just like to point out a couple things to you about this home, just so that way you're aware. And even the way that I'm speaking to them and I'm greeting them, I have a smile on my face. I'm on. I feel like I'm an actor from the moment that before they're even walking up, right? And so those are all, they're little things, but they make a significant difference for us. Yeah. It's like, for any of us, you don't want just a gift from a loved one, say your spouse, your girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, your significant other. You don't want them to just buy you a gift without really putting the thought behind it, right? It's like, and I made that mistake once. I bought a gift for somebody, and for me, it was just like, oh, yeah, this is cool. I'll buy it. I didn't put any attention behind the delivery, the wrapping, the message to them, the handing on over, finding the right time. To me, it's like, hey, I got you something. Here it is. It's on the countertop. And you might look at that and be like, okay, is he joking? No, I'm not. Human emotion is such a big part of what we do. Oh, yeah. Because we want to be memorable with our clients. We want to make them feel good. And we have to establish those opportunities. Where are they? And on a call like this, Joe and Cameron, on a 20, 30-minute call, it's almost impossible for us to get into the nitty-gritty details of how do we do this, right? Mm-hmm. This is something that I've focused on learning for decades, but I am very diligent about employing it every time I deal with a client. So this goes back to, here's how I could have spent the last 2 weeks plus in Europe and come back, heading back on out to Florida, heading back on out here, traveling. I've traveled more this year probably than any other year. That's one of my favorite things to do, but still closing consistently It has to do with the fact that I am establishing that hook with that client. I call it the sticky factor. I'm establishing a stickiness to them that even if I don't talk to them for a couple of weeks, when they're ready to sell, they're ready to buy, the client that I'm actually meeting on Saturday to go show them a home is exactly this. I met them at their open house. I gave them a listing presentation, answered their questions, made them feel really comfortable, confident. They're like, oh my gosh, this is great. And then I just keep them on my CRM. I send them text messages, send them some email videos, and then when they're ready to do it, they call me back and they're like, John, we're ready to go on this. So it's a combination of a few things. It's not any one thing, but if we were to look at the summary of it, it's the sticky factor. Most real estate agents lack with the questions. They lack with the delivery because it's not just how you say it or what you say, it's how you say it. As a real estate agent, some key takeaways I would say: record yourself when you're speaking. Play back when you're speaking and find out if you're full of fillers. If you're talking to a client and every other word, every 3 words, every 5 words is an or an especially if they're elongated. So yes, are you just looking in the city of Fontana, or that's not instilling a sense of confidence, because professionals don't speak that way. Now, most agents do. 99.9% of real estate agents do. That's one thing that you could fix. Now, how do you fix it? Record yourself. Listen to yourself. If you notice, when I'm speaking to you, I don't think you've heard a or an unless I included it purposely. But you'll notice that I'll pause when I'm talking. I'm giving myself time to think, and that's okay, because these things help establish a sense of confidence in your client. There's multiple studies to convey that the clearer you speak, the more concise that you are in delivering your message, and less filler words increases the sense of confidence in the person in which you're speaking to. The trust factor goes through the roof.
It's powerful. And it's interesting because so many people don't know how to shut those speech tendencies down. And a lot of it has to do with being comfortable with silence. There's a lot of discomfort there for people. But if you, like John, you just mentioned, when you have the ability to give yourself a breath before saying something else, it is almost like a poke of the brain of the person that you're communicating with, and it settles with them differently. And it really wields some power if you know how to leverage it. So I think that's an excellent takeaway for anyone listening to this. Get comfortable with silence in your communication. It's going to help you tremendously. Next thing I'm going to say is that I want people to really draw out from what you said, sales process, and you're demonstrating that. You even said it towards the end in a summation. It wasn't one thing, it's the process. And I feel like that's where a lot of agents make errors in their approach, because they're hanging their hat on a moment. Selling isn't a moment. And if it is, I don't know what your percentages are going to be there. But if your sales are developed through a process, you can make mistakes. You could say something the right way, but not the right words, or the right words and not the right way. And your process will support you. And this is where you've been excellent, John. We may make assumptions in real time and anticipate a question that isn't the question. But if that's the moment we were hanging our hat on, we're going to lose that opportunity. But if you have a process, you can make a lot of mistakes and have a ton of success.
John, you mentioned that, like, obviously, like, you can't dive into the details of it, but I heard you got to hit them with a hook right away. Joseph talking about the sales process, and you also mentioned the fundamentals, like, and also practicing. And so, like, just like athletes, Tom Brady or whoever your favorite quarterback is, they practice their fundamentals every single day and they master them, and that's why they're at that level that they play at. And so when it comes to salesmanship, like, first of all, what are the fundamentals? And then do you have any other tactics for real estate agents to practice them?
So I would say the first thing would be is to be more aware of your fillers, number one. And then the next thing would be is to think about what it is that you're selling. When people call me and they say, oh, I'm not calling to sell anything. Of course you are. You're calling to sell me on me giving my time to you so I can listen to you. Therefore, that's a sale, because you're offering me an exchange of something. It's like, let's know what we're doing. So you got to know what your goal is. So if you're going to be cold calling, you got to say, okay, I'm going to be cold calling. Who am I cold calling? I'm circle prospecting. If I'm circle prospecting, What is my message? So these are all those things that I would say are part of the foundation, is know where you're going, create a plan, understand that you have the immediate hook. How do you get that person's attention right from the start? So one thing that I did, and I know Cameron, you saw me in action on this many times over, is calling expireds and for sale by owners. Those are two different markets. So I have two different hooks when it comes to attacking those two prospects. And so I'm just putting putting myself in the mind of the consumer, the person that I'm calling, and then from there, me practicing my pitch, practicing my pattern. One thing that I've said often is that I don't like scripts. I like structure, because the moment you get thrown off your script and you're trying to remember something verbatim, it's easy to get thrown off. But if you know what your goal is, what is your intention when you're calling, what message are you trying to convey, wanting to convey, then you're in a position that if somebody asks you something and if they throw you off, it's easy for you to get right back on track. And then from there, it's role playing, it's practicing. Joe, I think it's so important that you're doing that too. I have a really good family friend that just reached out to me to say, I'm going to start calling online leads. And I said, before you start calling, make sure you know what you're saying and practice it, and be brutally honest with yourself about it, because the market will. And I'm not a believer in make 1,000 calls and you're going to be better. I believe that if you don't sharpen your tools and you make 1,000 calls, you're probably going to hate the phone. You're going to hate it, and you're going to say, this doesn't sucks. And you're going to have a sense of fear. You're going to have anxiety before you even make those calls, because you didn't prepare for the battle in the first place. If I showed up to a boxing match, and let's just say that I was taking on some like legit boxer. I'm not a boxer. Okay. I mean, when I was young, I did a couple classes, but come on, that's worthless. But if I fought some Golden Gloves boxer, I could fight him 1,000 times. He's going to probably knock me out 1,000 times. I'm probably going to throw in the towel if I could even show up 1,000 times. So that's where logically it doesn't make sense. You can't just go through the process 1,000 times and think you're going to be better. You create a process, create a structure. What are you going to say? How are you going to say it? Practice it. Okay, now that you have that, now you make some calls. Make 10 calls. Maybe have 3 legit conversations. Now assess. Take some time. Go through the process. Did you record your calls? Did you put them on speaker? Yes, I know you're not supposed to record somebody else without their permission, but this is just for your own homework. Listen to yourself. Assess it as best as you can. Make it better. Now make 10 more calls, 50 more calls. And then when you keep tweaking, keep assessing, all of a sudden you start gaining this confidence, like, wow, I can actually do this. And once you have that sense of confidence, then you start tweaking here, start tweaking there. Next thing you know, you can look at your phone and be like, this is a legit cash register. If I want to go on a vacation, I'm going to invest 3-4 days this week in order to pick up enough new business to pay for that, where I'm not going to have to throw anything on a credit card at all. It's going to be paid cash. I'm going to do whatever I want with my family. You want to do something like buy an investment property, build an ADU, whatever. You can legitimately look at your business that way and just be like, okay, now it's time, because I have the structured process for me to generate that business. My closing rates are much greater than before. Now, when it comes to holding open houses, now all of a sudden you're not like, damn, I need to hold an open house this weekend. When I hold open houses, I can't even wait for my open houses. Like, my wife knows, I look so forward to open houses. I'm like giddy in the morning. I'm excited. I can't wait, because I know I'm really good at them as well. So for me, it's like a game. Like, let's go. How many people do I need to talk to in order for me to book appointments and be able to meet with people, whether it's on Zoom or in person? And how many of those am I going to convert into business? And if you look at my rates of double ending my transactions, my double ending of my transactions is significantly higher than the competition. I'm going to actually look at my stats for that, but I know drastically higher than the competition. And Joe, I know you've even asked me about that, but it's when I'm speaking to that client, them feeling, and if they're talking to another realtor, if they have another, like, what does that even mean, right? I have another, no, there's something about this guy. I want to talk to you. I educate them. What did I tell you earlier? When you educate, you empower. When you empower, you build trust. All of a sudden, they're like, man, I like this guy. He educated us. I trust this guy. Hey, John, what about this? All right, John, yes, we're ready to put in an offer. Would you be willing to write this offer for us?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, absolutely, I am. Let's make it happen. So many of the people that I meet in some way, shape, or form, I just made a video actually where I said, if you're thinking about buying or selling real estate, chances are a real estate agent. In fact, you may already have a really good friend or a family member who's a licensed realtor. But let me explain to you why you should still talk to me. So I'm addressing that in the beginning because we're in Southern California, right? I mean, you throw a rock in Southern California and you hit a realtor. I tell my running joke when I go nationwide is if you have a fender bender on the road, you don't exchange insurance information. You just exchange realtor cards because chances are you hit a realtor. There's so many of us.
So, John,
Totally.
I want to come to a couple of quick items on that. Quick question for you on your open houses. And I know you haven't ran your stats, but if you were to just kind of sit with this for 1 second and guess to the best of your ability, how many open houses to one new client for you? Is it 1 for 1? Like every open house will lead to at least one new client, or is it maybe every two will it be at least one new client? How many open houses to a new client for you?
I would say very close to 1 to 1, but maybe, or so I'll say one weekend.
Okay.
So one weekend, Saturday and
Okay.
Sunday, like one weekend to one client.
Mm-hmm. And that's not even
Yep.
closing. We're talking client. I think for you, it's probably closing, which is,
Yeah, I'm referring to closing. So
yeah.
I'll just give you an example. I held an open house. First person that walks in, I engaged in conversation, found out very quickly the guy's extremely qualified, 800 FICO scores, $400,000 plus in the bank.
Mm-hmm.
He's ready to buy a house. Now, dang well, most people don't just save 400 grand. So when the moment he told me, I said, my questions that I always ask, right? I say, so what do you guys think? You ready to pack your bags and move on in? And then he says, oh, you know what? I really, really like this home, but there's only 3 bedrooms and I really need a fourth. I'm like, okay, yeah. Like to me, I'm like, no problem. Let me find you one with a fourth. That's what I'm thinking. I
Sure.
said, so how long have you guys been looking for? And right when I said that, he's like, man, we've been looking for like 5 months. I was like, 5 months? Okay. Is it just this area here in Ontario, or are there any other surrounding communities or cities that you're open to? His answer, the closer to LA, the better.
Mm.
And then I said, any other properties that caught your attention besides this one? He said, yeah, there's been a few that we've gone out and checked out. And I said, what was it about this home? What was it about those others? Because now all I'm doing is taking all of his looking and classifying, filtering between those houses and this house. You obviously showed up for a reason. What was it? I said, out of all the homes that caught your attention, and including this home right here, what was it about these homes that caught your attention? I want to be very specific. That's my goal. And he says, the backyard. I want a backyard for my children. And then here comes the six-figure question, guys, because it's just me at my open house. I have people that are now stepping in. So I got to get to it, right? Again, he's not there to make a friend. He's there to do some business. So I said, let's just say that you find what you believe to be is the ideal home at the ideal price. What's your time frame to make a move? And then he said, I'm ready now. I'm sitting on $400,000 in my bank account and I'm ready now. And I said, 400,000. Okay, I don't meet too many people with 400 grand in their bank account. I'm assuming you sold a house. And then he got a big smile on his face, like a sense of pride. He said, yes. He's like, my wife and I, we've bought and sold a total of 5 houses. I don't want to be one of those contingent buyers. Now, that says a lot because what he's telling me is that this guy is a qualified, astute client. Who in the world uses words like contingent buyers that are not licensed real estate agents or people that are in the business? So I'm privy to all this. And I said, you know what I'd love to do? I'd love to shoot you on over a text. Now, I'm not even asking, guys, and Cameron, this goes back to your question about sales. We can't get into everything just because it's time, but I'll tell you one thing that I do. When I speak to a client, I have an intention. You have to have an intent when you're speaking to somebody. You can't just speak without having a specific goal in mind. My goal is to get his phone number. So I said, you know what I'd love to do? I'd love to shoot you on over a text. And in my text, I'm going to, so now I'm already assuming the close, I'm going to include a video that gives you a breakdown of some of the key things that my team and I do to be able to help our clients fill in the blank with whatever he said he wants to do. Help our clients buy real estate in today's ever-changing and competitive market. Is the market changing? Yes. Is it competitive? Yes. And I said, and if you like what you see, or if you're impressed by what I send me a text back or give me a call. What's the best number to text you at? Now, if you notice the way that I'm saying it, I'm leading the dance here. I'm not saying it where, imagine if I said it like this. And what I'd like to do is shoot you a text with a video that includes some information on what my team. Now I'm already doubting myself that he's going to listen to me in the first place. So one of you asked, what do real estate agents maybe do that they don't know that they're doing? You ask that in some way, shape, or form. And that would be it. When they speak, they're already counting themselves out.
Mm-hmm.
They're not speaking with that intent to say, here's what I'm going to do. Speaking with a sense of authority. People like and they want authority. It's ingrained within us. If you look from the beginning of time, people were tribal. We had leaders. There was always like a hierarchy system to some degree. Even when there was absolute chaos, you always had, like Lord of the Flies, you had one person or a couple people that led the group. People like structure. They like authority. So I come in with that sense of authority. If you like what you see, or if you're impressed by what I send, simply send me a text back or give me a call. What's the best number to text you at? I grab my phone, I look right at my phone, I lean into the prospect, and I don't say a word. And like Joe said, I'm extremely comfortable with silence. I will stay quiet and not make eye contact with them to give them a chance to break. Next thing you know, he gave me his phone number. And then he went on to say, I've already met with 4 real estate agents. I met with 4 agents. He received my video that I sent that said, if you're watching this video, chances are you're interested in either buying or selling real estate. Hi, my name is John Reyes with Move Fast, Move Now, and I'm a real estate agent who services the Southern California real estate market. Now, this goes back to, what product am I selling? Service. I believe I'm great at what I do. I want my client to work with me because I do believe I'm a better prospect than most. Now, with that said, it's my responsibility to convey that to the prospect. So now when they leave my open house and they tap on that video and they're watching this professionally made video, what am I doing? I'm instilling a sense of confidence. I'm establishing this sticky factor. Him and his wife are like, man, this guy's good. This guy's professional. Next thing I know, I get a call from him. Hey, John, there's another home that's for sale right around yours. Could you meet me after your open house? I was like, yeah, perfect. Let's do it. He didn't end up buying that house. That's okay, because he bought an $800,000 home. Remember, I met him in Ontario. He bought a home in Baldwin Park that paid 2.75% on an $800,000 transaction. So this just goes back to your question, Joe, about deals. I was able to help that buyer buy a house, and I was able to also double end the house that I was selling as well. So that was a two for one.
And John, one thing that you speak about often for your personal business and your intention behind your real estate career is efficiency. And so what I've learned from you is that you're really good at, once you get someone on a for sale by owner phone call versus an open house, once you get them to where you're trying to get them to, that's where a lot of your processes converge, correct? Where this is your closing process. And it doesn't matter where that prospect came from, what the engagement was face-to-face, over the phone, whatever, or even, messaging on Instagram or Facebook. You get them to a place where then this is the rest of the sequence, right? And this video is instrumental for you. Tell us a little bit about how you've helped agents across the country with a very similar video, and then how you've actually helped them to implement that into their business. Because I know a bunch of people have a great video. They have a great video, and it's just on their YouTube that maybe has 5 viewings. When you have content like this, you are really dynamic when it comes to the distribution of said content in the sequence of your sales cycle. So speak to us a little bit about that, because I want people to be able to engage with you and actually not only get that video, if you will, for themselves, but more importantly, put it in their business so that it gets them results that you are achieving every day.
Well, you think about the product and service that you sell, you need to be able to capture that, throw it on a video, 30 to 60 seconds. We've all heard of the elevator pitch. If you don't know what that is, look up Shark Tank or look up the show Dragon's Den. It's where you pitch your business. You get people excited about it. And so for me, it just made very simple sense. I don't want to be playing in the same sandbox like my fellow realtors. I know dang well that when somebody shows up at an open house with me, there's a really good chance that they're going to go to another open house down the street.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to be memorable. If they don't go to another open house that day, I know they're going to see some other open houses. That means that they're going to be meeting other realtors. So now what do I simply want to rely on? Catching that person at the right moment when they're ready to buy and sell, because that's how a lot of agents generate business. They just get lucky with timing. I don't want to do it that way. I want to make sure that they remember my face, they remember my name, and that I'm at the tip of their tongue when they want to buy or sell real estate. So as Joe mentioned, we do these videos, we record them in Southern California. For agents who are nationwide, we are launching a brand new video service that will allow for us to interview you, just like we're doing right now with Joe. We ask you questions. We take this compilation of information that you give us, add some additional B-roll shots, add some additional items that we ask of you, and then we produce for you a 30 to 60-second video. And what we refer to this is as your virtual video business card. Because now when I tell that prospect, I'm going to shoot you over a text, what I'm sending is a video. Now, if we think about it this way, like I said earlier, I don't like to make things more difficult than what they need to be. I don't want a difficult life. If I was to send a text to a client, a prospect, do you think that they would at least look at the text? The answer to that is yes, because most people are obsessed with looking at their cell phones. Now, if I send them a message that's written out, that's cool. But if I actually send them a video, a person that watches a video, they are 90% more likely to remember the message of what they watch in a video in comparison to what they read. So now, why do I want to work 10 times less, right? Like less harder or less more efficiently? I want to make it simple and easy. Just remember who I am. I believe I'm offering a great product and service. And so that's what we do. The cool thing about it is that we give you a video that's landscape version for YouTube. We search engine optimize it for your name. So if somebody looks you up online, that's what we want populating within the search results. Now, it doesn't always happen because you might have competition with your name. That just means you need to do even more. My name is a perfect example, John Reyes. There's a lot of John Reyeses. That's why I promote John D Reyes, because I wanted to consolidate and take 80 plus million search results. At one time with John Reyes, it was 88 million search results. Wow. Because John is so popular, Reyes is super popular. Once I put John D Reyes, I consolidated the message. So all my marketing collateral is always John D, because now it's a very natural process for somebody to look up exactly what's on my business card or the marketing pieces that I send them. So that video right there is now something that you're proactive in getting in front of as many people as possible. You put that video front and center. When somebody goes to your Instagram account, make it simple and easy for them to be able to watch that video. My front and center video for me is a video of me speaking to the real estate community, because then that's a big part of my business where I love traveling. So then I get to travel and I'm invited to go and speak at events, and it's one of my fulfillments. Like that's one of my greatest things to do, because then I get to meet so many great agents across the country. And that's why I mentioned that today is Friday. I fly out on Sunday to Orlando for a huge statewide conference, and I'll be out there for a couple of days. And then I have a couple of other meetings that are already booked. But I know dang well when I go to Florida, I'll probably get 5 or 7 or 10 more invitations. But agents across the country all want to know, how do you make people remember to you? How do you establish that sticky factor? And how do I work less but generate more? Because now it's simple. Just work more and you'll close even more. So one thing I'll tell you guys is this. When I mentioned earlier about having like a hack in life, I learned this very early as well. Super, super early. When I was young, one of the things I used to like to do was to play pool, billiards. Mm-hmm. And I would play practically like every day. And I mean, I would go to the pool hall all the time. I played in tournaments, and I always felt that I loved the game, and I felt like I was like, okay, but I never felt like I was really great. And so what I did when I was in college at Cal Poly Pomona is that I found somehow, some way, I don't even remember how I found them, because I don't even know Google existed back then, but I found a professional billiards player. And then I used to hire them and pay them an hourly rate. So they would show up to my school, and then we would sit there and we would play. Like he would give me actual tactics and strategies on how to play. And I never knew that there was so much that went behind shooting the cue. Like even like breathing patterns, the placement of your fingers, the angle in which you hold the stick, the speed in which you hit it, and then learning about where to hit on the ball. So all of a sudden that made a significant difference. Then when I was in college, I used to play for $100 per game, which this is in 2000, 24 years ago. $100 went a lot further than it did today. That's probably like $400 or $500 a game now. But that's what I did as a college, kid. So I did that, but I learned that if you really want to excel in something, then it's important that you're working with somebody who can give you that guidance and advisement to make you better. It's me just playing more pool. I'm sure I would have got better, but not at the rate in which I ended up getting better. And then fast forward, I ended up doing that with poker. I have read so many poker books, like 30 poker books. I used to instill fear into so many of my friends when I would be at the card table with them because I was a winning player. Now I have fallen out of love with playing poker. It's kind of like a hobby. That's fine. My game is not where it is anymore. And it's only because my wife doesn't let me play as much as I like to. So I'm like, all right, if I can't play it the way that I want, which I want to be a winning player, well, then I'm not going to do it as much. Now I get into the love of golf. And Joe, Cameron, you guys know dang well, there are so many little tweaks. How you position your fingers amongst each other, the grip, like one little tweak can make the difference between the ball going this way or going this way. And these little tweaks can make the difference of you being like a legit good player, shaving 10 strokes off your game, which for many of you, that means nothing. But in the real estate world, those little tweaks are a difference of you making an extra $100,000 or not making $100,000 in a year. And in some instances, even significantly more.
John, I mean, I want people who are watching this to really understand how many layers there are with what you've provided today, just in our short time. For example, one of the things that you do amazingly well that I don't think you get enough credit for, because I don't think people even recognize what's happening, is your ability to storytell. It is powerful. I've seen you do this with clients. You engage, meet someone, and you tell them a story, and that sells for you. We haven't even touched that today, and that's something that you're just demonstrating for us. Next thing I really love about what you mentioned is being with somebody who can guide you through that has had the success. And that's why it's really important for people to engage with you on this video strategy, because you will help them do it the right way. It doesn't mean finding your video, writing down the words, saying it back to a camera and thinking it's going to work. What you've always been really good at with all these agents, and this is where you'd mentioned in interview, is you try to help someone get foundational about who they are so they can accentuate naturally what they're great at and why they are the right agent for their client demographic. And that's usually based on a value system. So I think that's really powerful. And one of the other things that I would always encourage an agent to do, and you mentioned this earlier, like that business diagnostic or just that internal navigation, being able to look at yourself in a very honest and authentic way and figure out where the gaps are. I call it mirror time. And one of the ways that I encourage an agent to uncover this, and it takes practice, everything does, right, John? I mean, you didn't show up one day and decide, I know, I'm going to analyze my performance and I'm great at it all of a sudden. It took years of your ability to sit down and come back to the table and say, let's analyze my performance. And over and over and over again, you became better at it. So one of the skill sets that I've tried to help agents employ is something called mirror time, where they show up to the mirror. And this is not something that I want them to think is an affirmation, because it's not. Mirror time is this. You show up to the mirror, you look yourself in the eyes, and you say the statement, I am the greatest listing agent for my clients. That's not an affirmation. You're not trying to convince yourself of that. You're making that definitive statement, looking yourself in the eye. And in that moment, gut check time, do you believe it? And if you do, it's extremely powerful, right, John? Like you said, you love your listing presentation. That's why you're so excited to go share it with everybody. And when you have that moment where you honestly can look yourself in the mirror and say, I'm the greatest listing agent for my clients, and believe it, there's a lot of power there. Now, if you don't believe it, this is where a lot of opportunity is available to us. The simple question to follow up is why? And when you start to internalize all the areas in your business, in your performance, in your marketing, in your, understanding of the contracts, whatever it is, starts to come to play, it's just simply your checklist. That's that internal navigation. And John, I think that you've been amazing at being able to do that. And I think it's incredible that you know how to help other agents do that in a way that actually spits out a marketing piece. So now they've made whole where they excel, the areas in which they can continue to develop, and then turn that into a marketing piece that converts. It's brilliant, quite honestly. And I really encourage every agent in the world to get to know John, follow him on every facet available, because there's so many layers to what he does and how he does it. And just being around it will allow a lot of people to see where they can implement some of those strategies for themselves. That was a really long-winded way to say, man, thank you for today. I really appreciate every time I'm around you, with you in the golf cart, on a stage together, or even just the Zoom like this. Because, John, we've spent decades well, not decades, at least a decade together now, right, in the industry. And we've spent many hours on stages together, many hours masterminding one-off together. And today is yet another time that I learned from you. So thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you, Joe. And I throw it back to you as well, just to let everybody who's on this know that it's important that you surround yourself with people that you want to aspire to be like, and surround yourself with people who are like-minded. And it's funny because I just had a friend of mine who's not in the industry, family actually, not in the industry, make a comment about, wow, the people that you bring around, the people that I met because of your network, it's like pretty amazing. Like, I've never met people like this. And what he means is really motivated people who are producing at a high level, people who are living lives that most people only imagine or they dream of. The reason I say this is because at the same time, I've elevated my game because of you. I went out and achieved my certification with the California Association of Realtors to be a certified forms trainer because I learned that you did it and you shared with me. And I was just so always impressed by your knowledge of the contract. So I was like, this is amazing. What if I could speak about the contracts like Joseph.limo? I would feel even more empowered. So then I contacted you. I went out and I received that certification, and now we're doing classes together, training other agents. That's making me a lot more efficient in understanding the contract. And then I went out and achieved getting my broker's license. And it's because of people like you as well. You and Christoph Chu were a big influence on me for that. So I just want to turn it back to let you know that it's likewise in my ability to go out and to learn from somebody like you. And I think that's really important because I think we will continue to support each other and grow and hopefully be able to connect with even more agents that want to grow with us.
You mentioned it earlier, iron sharpens iron. So it's an honor, absolute honor.
Yeah, I'll close with this just because I think this will be easy to understand.
Sure.
One of my favorite companies is Apple. Steve Jobs is like a business hero of mine. And if you don't know the story, when he was developing one of those first computers, he had the internals so nicely placed with like the ribbons and the wires and the circuit boards. And people were like, Steve, nobody's going to even see this. Why does this even matter? It's like a waste of time, money, and efforts and resources. But it was always about the details for him. Fast forward, we've seen what Apple has done. It's literally changed the world. I travel the world and I see so many people on trains in big cities and small cities with their iPhones. And I never lose sight of, wow, how that was the vision of one man, and one man created that. And now look at the impact that it's had. But I'm talking to you on my iPad Pro right now with my iPhone in front of me. And I just look at all these little things, the design of the keyboard, the fluidity and being able to scroll through the various apps. And even when I bought my iPad, I had shared with my cousin, it's an experience all on its own, just unpackaging the product, even the way that the box feels. And for Apple enthusiasts, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I've taken what I've learned as best as I can to try to think about my business and put attention and detail into every little aspect of my business as much as possible. When I speak on stage in front of a big audience, or when I go to a listing presentation, I do similarly, Joe, what you mentioned. I go back and I assess. The first thing I want to know is this, not what I did well. I'll get to that. But the first thing I want to do is to assess, what did I do wrong? What could we have done better? I spoke to an audience in front of hundreds of agents in Las Vegas. Such an amazing audience. It was a 2.5-hour class. Imagine sitting there 2.5 hours up in the front, no breaks, and I'm just rolling for the whole 2.5 hours.
Mm-hmm.
I had corporate executives in my session watching. And as soon as I was done, I had many of them come in, pat me on the back, basically give me my applause and say, wow, that was great. We loved it, this and that. I told my team, I said, okay, let's go and decompress. We went to the restaurant right there at the MGM, Mexican restaurant, as we're walking out of the convention center area. I bought a drink. We ordered some food. First thing we did is we sat as a group, and I told everybody that was there, that was close to me, what parts was I weak on? What could I have done better? Where do you feel that I was maybe losing the audience, or
Mm-hmm.
what could, and of course their response is, this was really good. It's like, I get it. Okay, it's good that it's good, but it needs to be great. Like, what could we have done even better? I think I could be a little bit obsessive about that. And I feel like I've done a lot better about taking a step back and just kind of breathing a little bit. But also that comes with confidence. I feel a lot more comfortable and confident where I feel that I could just be a little easy now. So make sure, agents, when you watch this, take that time, self-scrutinize, beat the hell up out of your own presentation, the way you speak, the way you talk, the way you walk, the way you answer your phone, your business card design, your marketing collateral when you leave a listing presentation. If you show up to a listing presentation and all you take is a CRM, then you have a problem. You need to fix that. Assess better than anybody else will assess with you, because at the end of the day, when you're looking at your family, when you're looking at your significant other, and when you're looking at your kids, remember, nobody else is paying your bills. Your manager's not paying your bills. So be your own best cheerleader. And I think life in our industry will be so much easier.